There is something profoundly mysterious about the Parasha Nasso. It's the longest parasha in the Torah, detailed, structural, almost architectural in its nature. At first glance, it seems to deal merely with organization. Tribes, responsibilities, purification, boundaries, offerings, sacred duties, the arrangement of the camp in the wilderness. But the Torah never organized things alone. It organizes souls because the wilderness was never merely geographical. The desert was a spiritual laboratory where an enslaved generation had to learn how to become inwardly free. Understand, a people may leave Egypt physically, while Egypt still remains alive within them psychologically. And perhaps this is one of the deepest revelations hidden inside this Parasha Nasso. Before Israel could enter the Promised Land, they first needed inner reconstruction. And this happens also in our inner lives. How many times we want to achieve our dreams, our projects, but before we arrive there, we really need to reconstruct our inner self. Also, Israel, what they needed was to rediscover identity, dignity, sacred responsibility, spiritual alignment, emotional wholeness. Because freedom without the inner order eventually collapses. And this is precisely why it is so extraordinary that in the middle of so many laws, structure, responsibilities, and the organization of Israel, now on one of the most powerful passages in all of Torah suddenly emerges. The great blessing, the Birkat Kohanim, the priestly blessing. And this is not accidental. The Torah is revealing something timeless about the human condition. The human soul cannot survive on productivity, intelligence, strategy, or achievement alone. It needs brachot, blessing. It's not about shallow optimism. It's not about motivational language. We have this enough in the world. It's not temporary emotional stimulation, but something capable of restoring internal order to internal chaos. Internal chaos, because there are people who function in a kind of way externally, smile socially, succeed professionally, appear emotionally composed. However, while inwardly carrying fragmentation, exhaustion, anxiety, and silent despair. And perhaps this is the main crisis that we have in our modern world. Never before have we possessed so much technology and yet felt so spiritually disconnected. Never before humanity had so much information and yet so little inner peace. Never before have we been so connected digitally and yet so emotionally alone. And why? Because information cannot replace presence. Performance cannot replace peace, the inner real peace. Success cannot heal the soul. And it is precisely at this point that the Torah introduces the priestly blessing. Almost as if heaven itself were declaring, before conquest comes healing, before expansion comes restoration, and before the living of the promise comes blessing. And that's no coincidence that this blessing is given specifically in the wilderness, in the moment that you feel empty or perhaps anguished, insecure. Why? Because the desert exposes what noise conceals. In the desert, distractions disappear. Illusions weaken. False securities collapse at all. And the soul becomes audible again. The wilderness forces human beings to confront their fears, their dependencies, their inner chaos, their true identity. And perhaps this is why so many of humanity's deepest spiritual transformation happened in deserts. Because when the external becomes silent, the invisible begins finally to speak. And there, in the silence of the wilderness, God gives humanity one of the most powerful spiritual formulas ever spoken. The priestly blessing. Exactly the blessing that the last millenniums, the Jew families were given to their children. And this blessing is not merely as poetry, not merely as ritual, but as an architecture for the restoration of the human soul. So now open your heart in a deep way, because now we are going to dive the structure of this blessing. And this blessing that is in number 6, starting from the verse 24, will say, "May the Lord bless you and guard you." In Hebrew, Yevarechecha Adonai veishmerecha. Here lies a great secret that is some kind unveiled. The first human need is not about success. It is about protection. There are people who gained wealth but lost their soul, who gained applause but lost peace, who built empires but could not preserve what truly mattered. This is why the blessing begins with, "May the Lord bless you and guard you." Because it's not every blessing that survives prosperity. In Jewish thought, to guard, shomer, means more than physical protection. It means preserving the soul from the corrosion of the world. To guard your identity, your conscience, your inner purity, your ability to remain spiritually sensitive. True prosperity is not merely receiving. It's remaining whole after receiving. And now let's dive even deeper. Now going to the second blessing. Yaer Adonai panav elecha vihoneka. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Here we enter something deeply healing. In biblical Hebrew, face represents presence, When the Torah speaks of the face of God, it speaks about the experience of not being abandoned. And perhaps one of the deepest human fears and wants is invisibility. To feel unseen, to feel unrecognized, to feel emotionally forgotten. But the priestly blessing declares, may the eternal light find you. It's not merely your external image, but your hidden places, your silent fears, your private battles. And then comes the word, vichoneka, gracefully with you. Grace is when heaven touches you, even while you are still unfinished. It is when God does not wait for you to be perfect before drawing near to you. And this is so beautiful. Embracing, comforting. And now we go to the last part of the blessing, the third part, where we have, may the Lord lift his face toward you and grant you peace. Isa Adonai panav elecha veyasem lecha shalom. And here we arrive at the climax. The blessing does not end with wealth. It does not end with power. It does not end with status. It ends with shalom. And we know that in millennial ancient wisdom, shalom is not merely the absence of conflict or of war, or even meaning just peace. Shalom comes from the root shalem, that means whole, complete, integrated. True peace is inner integration. And it is when the soul, mind, and body stop warring against one another. Identity and purpose become aligned. A person no longer needs to flee from themselves. Yes, the priestly blessing is in reality a spiritual progression. We have provision, presence, integration. Or in other words, sustenance, light, peace. The inner complete peace. And here lies the deepest sought secret. There is something almost overwhelming at the end of this passage, where we see God saying, so shall they place my name upon the children of Israel, and I myself shall bless them. The priest spoke the words, but the blessing itself came directly from Hashem. And this changes everything, because human beings may become channels, but they were never meant to become the source. And perhaps one of the greatest forms of spiritual maturity is understanding this. People may help us, inspire us, even love us deeply, but no human being can occupy the place of the source. And then we come to a reflection for our generation. Yes, how is our generation nowadays? Our generation is tired, anxious, fragmented, overstimulated. Never before have we had so much connection but so little peace. And this is why the Birkat Kohanim remains eternally relevant. It reminds us that human beings need more than performance. They need spiritual covering. More than productivity, they need inner peace. And more than instant answers, they need enough inner light to keep walking through the wilderness without losing their soul. Because there are deserts that exist invisibly. People are walking through emotional deserts, spiritual deserts, relational and existential deserts, and perhaps the eternal message of the priestly blessing in this is, even in the wilderness, presence remains. Even in chaos, light can still reach you. And even in fragmentation, there still is a path back to wholeness. And so I want now to finish the priestly blessing, bringing it entirely, and open your heart to receive it and receive the inner peace that you need. Yevarechacha Adonai vishmerecha. Yaer Adonai panav elecha vihuneka. Issa Adonai panav elecha veyaseh lecha shalom. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord guard you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift his face toward you and grant you peace. Shavua Tov. Shalom. Shalom.